Now from Atlanta News First Plus, this is Sports Tonight.
Welcome into Sports Tonight. Emily Gagnon here with a face we haven't seen in a while.
It's been a minute.
Fred Campagna, the one and only super duper weather sportsman. That's what I'm going to call you. Because
Sports weather.
Yeah. You literally could take
right.
my job, Bailey's job, anyone's job. But it is October 11th, a Wednesday. We've got so much going on in Atlanta right now. Truth be told, Fred, we're going to have to get started with the Braves, who are playing as we speak. And they are down bad, 6-1. A very pivotal game 3, if you ask me. It's the first game in Philly, and, you know, we both talked about the atmosphere there. You know, what the Braves are facing right now, being down 6-1 in, I think, the top of the fourth or bottom of the fourth.
Bottom four now,
It's not good.
No, it's not good at all. I mean, the bank is this reputation as the hardest park to play in. It was crazy last year. And Bryce Harper gave him reason to go crazy this year, Castellanos as well. But as Bryce Harper's home run landed, do we know if that's happened yet? Because that was
it's
massive.
like Soler's home run in the World Series against Houston. Around the world.
And you said pivotal, and I think the reason why it's huge, or for the Braves, at least from my angle, from a psychological perspective, if you won today, you'd at least know. You'd obviously want to win Thursday, but you'd at least know that it's coming back to Atlanta.
Right.
You lose today, back to the wall, and it's not looking good right now at 6-1 in the fourth.
Yeah, and right now they have someone on. So with
Again.
one out, one on. So, you know, the scoring might not be done. Obviously, it's still very early on. Sean Gable's one of our anchors. She was just saying, like, but they could come back. They could come back.
Yeah, don't let the Braves fans know that. I mean, Sean has a little bit of a reputation. The teams that she pulls for.
She thinks that Georgia Tech's going to win the national championship.
Yeah, she had Kennesaw State winning the NCAA championship.
I mean, listen, but in all reality, they could score. I mean, 5 runs. They did it 5 unanswered runs. They did it the other night.
Right.
However, they'd have to say +1 because 5 runs gets you to a tie.
There's a lot of game left. They have 5 more cracks at it, 5 more bats, but 6-1. That's a pretty steep deficit to be in at this point. The like you said, the park is rocking. The Phillies continue to hit, so they have another runner on here, and you start to get into that 7-1, 8-1 range. You start to wonder if Snit will maybe have someone kind of eat a few innings, even if they do lose this game. You just don't want to tax the bullpen. You don't want to keep rolling guys out there.
Yeah, and we might find out while we're on this show.
I hope not.
But for the thing for me, right, and I don't want to take it there because they haven't lost a series yet, but entering the series, I said, wouldn't it be something if the Braves did all of this during the regular season?
Yeah.
I mean, like, home run records.
Right.
I mean, Matt Olson doing what he did.
Right.
Acuna, 40-70 club. I mean, then to lose in the NLDS, I was like, gosh, wouldn't that be something? But that would be the most Atlanta sports thing ever, would it not?
Be right up there.
Yeah.
It'd be too bad because they're definitely in a championship window. For those that don't know, I hail from New England, so I'm having a little Boston Bruins, throwback here because the Bruins had a magical regular season last year and then lost in the first round of the playoffs. And for the Braves to have what was pretty close to a magical season this year.
Gosh,
I mean, it was unbelievable. They were so much fun to watch. They even had some injuries during the year, but still managed to win so many games and best record in the MLB. Which brings me to another point, Em, and I don't know if we don't have to get too deep into it.
No, let's do it.
Why a 5-game series?
What do you want?
Like,
You want
why
3?
are we 7?
Oh, you want 7?
No,
okay.
I want 7. The
Okay.
NHL, the NBA, it's 7 games from the start. You play 162 games, Major League Baseball, and then you're going to come out with a series that
They
pits
ease their
the
way
Phillies,
into 7.
I know, and I know you can't be playing baseball until
Year-round.
Thanksgiving
Yeah.
in
I mean, you
Chicago
could.
because you could you're going to have some really cold
Yeah.
games, but it just seems like we're being robbed of what could be a great, incredible series. This is essentially my take on it is that whoever wins this series is winning the World Series.
Really?
Because, well, I think the Dodgers are in a whole heap of trouble.
Oh, my gosh.
And so they're down 2-0 going back to Arizona. The Astros are the Astros. They're very good, but I do think they're beatable. They're probably, it's going to be all Texas most likely, right? Astros and Rangers.
I'm disappointed in the Orioles, to be honest with you, because I was looking for an Orioles-Braves World Series. That's what I was looking for.
Right, and to my point about these 5-game series, they're over before you know it.
Yeah.
Like you go down 2-0 at home, like the Orioles
you're done.
did, and it's you're pretty much done. Now
Yep.
watch the Dodgers come back and win 3. Maybe that'll happen, maybe that won't. But I do think that in a 5-game series, you lose the first 2 at home, you are in a whole heap of trouble, and that's what's happened to the Dodgers. So you could be looking at the D-backs, the Rangers. We know the Astros are very good, won the World Series. And then, one of these two teams, Phillies or Braves. And I think that Phillies or Braves, you can make the case for either one of them being the best team left.
So for me, for the Phillies, they got so far last postseason.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that, including myself, I've given them enough credit throughout this year in the fact that they probably won it more than most teams because of how last season ended. That's just my take right now.
Hungry dog runs faster. I mean, that's, they came up short.
Yeah. And that hurt. That hurt. That stung.
Yeah, it does. And the Braves came up short, obviously, as well last year, but the Braves have had a lot of these guys have experienced a World Series championship, as a member of the Braves. So I'm not saying that the Braves aren't hungry for it. I'm sure they are.
Yes.
But the Phillies right now,
I think they
the
want
way
a
they're
little
playing,
more.
they have some swagger to themselves. Bryce Harper is just proving the base running gaff aside. He's built for the big moments, it seems. So hopefully the Braves can get it together in this game, and if not in this game, to me, in a way, Game 4 becomes like a Game 5.
Oh, it's a must win.
It was a must-win for the Braves,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
if you win it, I think you carry significant momentum back to Truist Park.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
So whoever wins tomorrow, obviously, has the momentum.
Right.
But, really quickly before we move on, yesterday I gave a shout out to the D-backs because they are the perfect example of what happens when a team gets hot at the right time during the playoffs. They have yet to lose this postseason, and now they're 1 win away from knocking off the Dodgers.
I know.
And I had the Dodgers and the Braves in the NLCS together.
Yeah.
And it could go a completely different way after tonight. I
could be
after
wrong,
tonight.
but of the 4 teams, I think most people had the Dodgers in the NLCS because I think some people were probably split on the Phillies and the Braves because that was at least on paper, a much closer series. I think everybody thought the Dodgers were going to make the NLCS. And again, they haven't been eliminated yet, but it's not looking good.
No, they have to win 3 before, the D-backs have to just win 1.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that's what Michael Harris was saying during Game 2, before Game 2 at Truist Park. He's like, they have to win 2 before we have to win 3. So, it's kind of a number game at this point, and that's how players are looking at it. And, of course, ending it on the Braves and Phillies, it's looking like the Phillies are going to win, and they'll have to only win 1, and the Braves will still have to win 2. Yeah. So it's possible in Game 5, if it's necessary. It is back at Truist Park, but the Braves did not do well in Game 1 at Truist Park. So all of this is very interesting. Do you think that the Phillies might just have their number? There is something to that in sports.
Yeah, baseball's so different though because it's essentially like a one-on-one sport, right? The pitcher and the hitter, and for whatever reason, the Braves bats are not what they were during the regular season. You do see that a lot once you hit the postseason. You start seeing better and better pitching than you would see during the regular season. It gets a little bit cooler, maybe a little bit tougher for the hitters. But I think that Braves offense is going to have to find a way to get it in gear early. If they can't do it late in Game 3, they need to do it early in Game 4 or hope for an incredible pitching performance, which I'm assuming would come from Strider, right?
Yes, and he is pitching tomorrow. We know that. Spencer Strider, they're leaning on him. And I don't know if you watched that game one, but he was so upset when he was taken out of the game because he wanted to continue after 7 innings. And it's not like he had a bad outing at all.
He had a good outing, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they ended up losing, but for him, for his sake, like I mean, he truly took care of business. So, I mean, I would think that at this point he is your one saving grace possibly. But and one more thing, Fred, I keep saying one more thing before we move on, but the Braves did. It's because you and I haven't talked on this show for so long. This is why I keep saying one more thing, because I get excited with you. Towards the end of the season, before postseason started, they were not as hot as they were the entirety of the season.
True.
They lost more than they won towards the end.
And the Phillies started the season slow. Everyone was like, what's wrong with the Phillies? Then they got it together, and they played really solid baseball for a while. So the ebbs and the flows, hopefully that tide will shift one more time.
Yeah,
in the next
one
couple
more
of days.
time. But right now, it's still down 6-1, game 3 of the NLDS. All right, let's move on to the Falcons. They're going for a 4-0 at home.
Wow.
Okay, so, all right. They've won 3 at home, lost 2 on the road.
Yeah.
They're 3-2 right now. They play very well at Mercedes-Benz Stadium right now, and they can't play away from there, it seems. But this weekend, the good news is the Commanders are in town, so they could be 4-0 at home at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'd have to look this up, Fred, because I don't know the answer right now. But I don't know the last time, if it's ever happened, if the Falcons have been able to win 4 straight in that building ever. I truly
Possible,
don't know.
right? The building hasn't been around that long. I mean, it would be a great this is a next step kind of game for me, for the Falcons, right? Like if you're going to take the next step, you need to beat the Washington Commanders at home. I don't think the Commanders are a terrible team.
They're not.
They haven't played great of late. The Bears game wasn't good, but I don't think they're a bad team. They do have some offensive weapons. They have a very stout defensive line.
Oh my, that D-line is crazy.
Right. So that's strength on strength right there in a way, because the Falcons' offensive line is pretty darn good too. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. That D-line seems to be best at getting after the quarterback, which shouldn't be too huge of an issue if the Falcons are able to run the ball, right? Because that's what they want to lean on anyway. So they're going to need to play a clean game, going to need to win the turnover battle. And if they win this game, it's not a bad start to the season.
No,
at
4-2.
4-2,
No,
right?
no, not at all.
If they lose this game, you kind of go, we got
back to 500.
we got 7-10, 8-9, 9-8, or in a best case scenario, probably 10-7 on our hands. But you get to 4-2, you can start to,
you build on that.
dream a little bit about what you could be.
I also think, don't quote me on this, but I believe that the Commanders have given up something like the 9th most rushing yards this season in the NFL. And so I talked to Bijan today, and I was like, do you look at those numbers? Like, is that something you see right away? And he's like, yeah. Oh, yeah, we look at that right away to see how many yards any one team, rushing yards, for him, they're giving up per game. And he said, yeah, I mean, we saw that right away. So he expects, obviously, to get the ball quite a bit. It's been interesting, Fred, because when he was drafted by the Falcons, I don't know about you, but a lot of people were thinking, like, what are the Falcons doing?
I did not like that pick because I thought they had more needs, but
correct. It's paid off.
I'm wrong.
I mean, he is by far, just at this very
He's
moment,
different. Yeah.
he's by far the best player that goes out there on Sundays, and he's like the youngest.
Yeah.
You have other talent on the roster like a Kyle Pitts or even a Drake London. You could argue that some of the defensive guys, Bates, are possibly better, but right now that pick has paid off. I mean, it truly, truly has, and he's just such a nice guy, young, nice, and great on the field. So right now the Falcons are laughing because they're like, hey, everybody doubted us when we made that pick, but yet he's the one who goes out on Sundays. He runs the ball, he catches the ball, does all the things that we knew he would do. We just didn't know how well he would do it.
I think we knew, we hoped that they would use him a certain way.
Yeah.
So I wasn't crazy about the pick just because I thought the Falcons had more needs. And a guy like Jalen Carter, right, could have been a pick there for the Falcons, and we see what he's done in Philadelphia. Now, would it be the same for the Falcons? We don't know. Philly, a lot deeper team overall defensively than Atlanta. But anyway, back to Bijan. He's electric.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's great, and it's helped Ritter. Ritter has to have gained some confidence from the way he finished that game on Sunday,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So good connection with Drake London. It was like, where has this been?
Yeah.
But he had no choice. They had no choice.
They had to
but
throw it.
to throw the ball there. So he had to throw some contested passes. He had to maybe have a read that was like, well, this might not exactly be there, because it seems like he's the type of guy who's like, unless I know the throw is there, I'm not really going to make it unless I have to. And he had to make it, and they got it done. So now they need to
build on that.
just lay, some more bricks in the foundation here, and hopefully get to 4-2.
It was his first, and I'm talking about Desmond Ritter's first 300-plus passing yards game. The last quarterback to do that, it was Matt Ryan, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was in 2021, midway through this season. I don't remember the exact number, but they were playing the Saints week 8, and that was the last time a Falcons quarterback threw for over 300 yards. I mean, that's kind of sad when you think about it. But it's definitely an improvement. He wasn't sacked. He didn't turn the ball over. So he went from his worst game in the NFL, worst start in the NFL, to probably his best as a pro.
Right.
What's interesting, and I don't know if you know this, so when he was at Cincinnati, 26-0 as a starter at home.
Yes. No, I know
26-0.
this. I was actually going to bring it up.
Yeah. And then he hasn't lost at the Benz yet as a starter. He's only lost on the road.
I heard that streak goes back to high school, too. I'm not sure
Really?
if that's the case.
No, I'm sure it does. So for some reason he plays better. I mean, I
Yeah.
would think that most teams play better at home. But to think that he has yet to lose, like on his home turf, that's a pretty incredible stat.
It is a good stat, and the deeper this run gets, the more commonplace it becomes to hear that stat. Like, it was a deep cut earlier, but now, I'm sure it'll be mentioned within the first 5 minutes of the game on Sunday. Like, hey, Desmond Ritter's never lost a home game in the college or the pros. Yeah, I think the defense is going to have to play well, too, on Sunday, because Washington's offense is not terrible. They do have some skilled players there. They can put up some points if you're not playing good defense.
I do think it's worth mentioning before we move on to talk about the Dawgs. Van Jefferson was at practice today. They traded for him yesterday with the Rams. He took a red eye. He had yet to go to sleep. So he landed in Atlanta at 6 o'clock, went straight to practiced with the team today. He hopes to be able to play this weekend. Coaches did not confirm that with us. They're just going to see how he does throughout the week. But Kyle Pitts and Van Jefferson played together at Florida.
All right.
And they're very good friends. And Pitts said when he heard the news, he was in the grocery store and he picked up the phone and called him and was screaming in an aisle.
Yeah.
And then Jefferson, he confirmed that story with us. He's like, yeah, I picked up the phone. He's like, yeah. And I was like, this is great. So they're very happy. Two former Gators who play for the Falcons, happy to have a reunion. They only played together for 1 year. That was Pitts last year at Florida. But together they did some great things at UF. Of course, Jefferson, he's young. He hasn't been in the league forever. Drafted in the second round of the 2020 draft, but he has won a Super Bowl.
It's a good pickup.
Yes.
Because the Rams, with Kupp coming back and with Puka Nacua, emerging as an elite wide, so now they have some wide receivers. They have Tyler Higbee. Jefferson became a little bit expendable for them, and the Falcons didn't give up much to get him. And he's still young, and the Falcons, after London and Hollins, maybe a little bit thin at wide receivers, so great.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I think this is like a win-win.
Absolutely.
I think they got a 7th round pick, maybe. The Rams did.
It wasn't much, yeah.
But for the Falcons, I think this is good. And his dad played for the Falcons. Jefferson's dad.
Is he Sean Jefferson's kid?
Oh, now I don't know a first name.
Yeah.
Let me look. But
he must be.
His dad played here, and he said when he was a kid, he remembers going to the games and watching his dad, and they lived in Marietta. So none of this is new to him.
Yeah.
He knows the city
area.
well. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. He said all of his family is in the southeast.
Ellie's telling me, it is Sean Jefferson's
Yeah,
kid.
so that's pretty cool,
awesome.
right?
I probably knew that at one point, but some things get deleted as space fills up in the brain. So that
Yeah,
might have
no, that's
deleted.
understandable.
Yeah.
I didn't even know his first name, but yeah, no, for sure. So he's very familiar with Atlanta. He said he hated to leave his family behind. He's married with kids, but I'm sure that they'll be here eventually, and all that will work itself out. Moving on to UGA, and I know you have some strong opinions about Georgia this season, and you and I have talked about this, and I agreed with you. They're going to lose one game this season. You and I have talked about it, week in and week out, and then they played Kentucky.
Yeah, and we haven't talked since Kentucky.
Right, and then they played Kentucky.
Yeah.
6-0.
Put it together, right? I mean,
oh
put it
my
all
gosh.
together.
Did you watch the game?
I did watch some of it. I did not watch, from kickoff
Beginning
to
to
final
end.
whistle, but put it together. I mean, Carson Beck looked great.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, I mean, because they already had that game in hand before Bowers started to rack up a lot of the stats. So his stat line was really good from the game, but he wasn't as impactful early in the game as he was when the game was already in hand. So I think that's a good thing for the Dawgs, right? If you can get out to that kind of a lead without him being a major part of it. I'm sure he was drawing a lot of coverage that opened up some other things. Defense played great. They have, maybe you can call this week kind of the bye before the bye, going up to Vandy.
It's true.
Which is,
Home away from home.
Everyone would expect they'll take care of business in Nashville, and then the week off. And then we'll see, we'll see. A little tough stretch there, end of October, early November.
Oh, yeah, there's some games waiting for them for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I expect them to move to 7-0 very easily.
Yeah.
Carson Beck, it was the first time where I thought, okay, this guy's a stud.
Mm-hmm.
And he's from Florida, from Jacksonville. He played high school there.
Yeah.
He played baseball and football. People forget that he was committed to Alabama before he decided to change his mind and go to Georgia. And I learned on Monday when Kirby was talking and then Carson talked, they said that, the reason he's so good with pressure and he doesn't get flustered and the reason why he just stays so cool in these come-from-behind wins and doesn't, he literally doesn't sweat, has no pulse, is because of his time as a pitcher. And he said, being on the mound and throwing 80, 90, 100 pitches in a game, you learn to just be cool.
Yeah.
And I thought, that is really interesting. He is one of the best, against the blitz. I don't know the exact stat, but Carson Beck's one of the best in the NCAA right now against the blitz. And that's because they say he just keeps his composure, and the pressure from baseball is what I guess has helped him. I don't know that. I've never played baseball or football, but it sounds good, right?
Yeah, he was impressive. It was a really impressive game from him. Like you said, probably not going to struggle too much with Vandy. Even if they don't play their best game, they should easily win against
they'll
Vandy.
drop 60.
Yeah. No, I saw Vandy. That was the game I went to last year in Athens. It was, it was I think it was 52-7 or something like that. But it was, so I may have to walk that take back a little bit. If they play like they're going to play, like they played against Kentucky throughout the rest of their season, they're going to be really hard to beat.
Yeah.
But it just seems like there's a little more parity this year in college football overall.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
You still got Florida waiting. You got Mizzou waiting, and Mizzou had LSU to the all the way down to the line.
I know.
I mean, it was I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna pull it off and remain undefeated. But right now, UGA is the only undefeated team in the SEC. But yeah, they have Florida, Mizzou. They have Ole Miss coming to Athens, and
right.
You never know.
One last thing on the Dawgs. Did you catch what Stoops said today?
About the NIL, right?
Yeah, about the NIL. And it wasn't so the headline reads as kind of a shot at the Dawgs.
Yes.
But it was more of a shot at the Kentucky boosters.
Yep.
Being like, hey, you want those kind of players, you got to start ponying up some money. Because
basically, he was on his radio show, I think on Monday night, and he mentioned something like it's time for people to pay up NIL so they could get better players. Is that how you took it?
Yeah, of course.
And he's basically saying that, Georgia has some of the best players in the country because, they're able to get these deals done and whatever the case may be. But I say this about Texas. Texas has been able to get all these deals for their players. And that's, in my opinion, beyond Sark, why the Longhorns have been able to turn it around. Because now, guys, and you might not want to hear this, but kids walk into coaches' offices on their visits and they say, how much are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
They no longer care about the A on their chest, the U, they don't care about any of that stuff. They want to know and coaches tell me this off the record,
Yeah.
they want to know
What's in it for
they
me.
are going to make as a college athlete going to whatever university. So that's unfortunate, Fred, but
It is.
that's where we are. And if you're going to pay up, you're going to get the best players. All right, really quickly, Hawks. They've played their first preseason game. It was ugly for a second last night against the Cavaliers, but they won by a single point. I
Right.
thought they lost it. And I think it was 108-107. But it's going to be Quinn Snyder's first full season as head coach for the Hawks, and I do expect them to be significantly improved because he is not about games.
Yeah. We'll see, though.
You're an NBA
with,
guy,
With the
so-
roster, I'm not so sure. I mean, the East, you've got some pretty good teams in there for sure.
Could it get any worse for them?
Right.
With Milwaukee.
Yeah, so Milwaukee, the Celtics, the Sixers should be decent. Miami's going to be around. So there are some Orlando's up and coming. I kind of see the Hawks in the same boat as last year, which is like 6, 7, 8 seed, somewhere in there. Maybe, unfortunately, play-in tournament stuff again. So they're not particularly big. Their two best players, DJ and Trey, are not.
They're not
guards.
big.
Yeah,
I would not
just-
describe. That is the last word I would use to describe the two of them.
To me, it's going to be a very interesting year for Trey, because his numbers were pretty good last year, but on the surface, but his efficiency wasn't as good. Anyway. That's kind of how I see things. I mean, it's one preseason game. There's not a heck of a lot to say. So we could probably circle back, because what's on my mind, probably what's on a lot of people's mind, which is what's going on up at the bank in Philadelphia, and what's going on. What's the latest?
Oh, it's now 7-1.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So slipping away a little bit.
Harper hit a home run.
Another one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good, actually, because if he did do that, then, that may light a little fire under the Braves, because apparently Arcia was saying stuff after Harper's base running mistake.
Yes, in the clubhouse, apparently after game 2. I was in the clubhouse, and I was doing interviews, and this was not on camera,
Yeah.
but apparently he was making fun of Harper, and yes, they are absolutely showing the replay of him just
Staring him down, huh?
mean mugging.
Oh, boy.
I'm all about the mean mugging, but this is
Right.
what's fun about any kind of sport, let's be honest.
Well,
Like,
baseball's gotten a lot more fun in the
Yes.
last couple of years, because the guys are all right with it, right? Like, they
first
just know.
multi-home run postseason game of his career.
Wow.
For Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just saw that stat, so I was like, man, and that's kind of crazy to think about, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
he's-
because he's been such an incredible player.
Yeah, as good as he is. But yeah, it's not looking like the Braves are going to get out of this one. And quite frankly, Fred, like have you been to a game there?
At the bank?
Yes,
No.
I have not personally.
Yeah.
But just to hear it, I mean, just
It's
to
raucous,
hear,
yeah.
you could tell on TV.
It has a different feel. It buzzes more than most parks, like between pitches and just when nobody's on base, and it's just got this electricity to it. So Spencer Strider, what are you made of? Can you give us 7 innings, 1 hit, 12 Ks, because it might take that kind of a performance if these Braves bats don't get going here.
And let's be honest, like we're talking about what's on your mind. What's on my mind is just the fact that if I am the Phillies and doing this tonight, I'm shutting it out tomorrow. I'm not coming back here. I have no interest in coming back to Atlanta.
obviously.
I want the weekend off. I want to win tomorrow night.
Yeah,
so
that's
I
gonna be there.
expect exactly that to happen. But right now, guys, we're going to leave you. Sports tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Emily Gagnon, Fred Campagna, 7-1, bottom of the 5th, if I'm reading that correctly, Phillies.
See ya.
Womp womp.